Welcome back to another episode of Questions with Crocker. And
hey, friends, welcome to another.
Oh gosh, we already screwed up.
Three podcasters trying to do a podcast. This is gonna be tough.
I'm
okay,
sorry,
Molly.
I thought I was second.
Molly,
Hey,
go.
Hey, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Molly Says podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of It Might Get Weird, the podcast.
Gary, your voice is just made for this. I mean, it
Really?
sounds
Made for
amazing.
radio.
Yes,
Totally.
I love it. I love it.
Is that a
So
nice way of
why-
saying that my face is made radio?
No, I knew that's where you're going to take it, though. Okay, so it's not just that the three of us want to chat and hang out, which is the case also, but we actually have something exciting coming up at AVMA that Gary kind of pulled together. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why we're here and what's going on?
Yeah. Hi. I'm Gary Marshall, by the way, which I'm not usually on Questions with Crocker. So I should probably introduce myself. And yeah, I'm part of the Early Career Development Committee for AVMA. And we have a panel this year. And we wanted to put together a talk on the things that we wish we knew while we were in vet school or just getting out of vet school that might be able to help future veterinarians, either students or early career vets. And I thought, who better to ask to help me do this than Molly and Tannetje? So here we are.
Yay, so many things.
So many things.
I think we all have stories. And honestly, on social media, I think we're all pretty active in kind of sharing our stories. But it'll be really nice to, one, get questions from people before we get there, and then have a lot of interaction with the people who attend the session around what we talk about. Because I think one of the goals is also, right, networking and connecting. That's always important at conferences. You go to a lot of conferences, Molly. How do you feel about that aspect of it?
Yeah, I love a conference. I love a panel. I always say I love a
conference
panel.
fit.
Yes, a conference fit, seeing all the people and a panel. I love to be on a panel, which I'm excited this is. But I just love conferences because there is such a range of vets as far as where they are in their career. And there are people in those stages of their career doing all different things. So there are people speaking who are earlier in their career, middle, later in their career, and listening and participating in all the events. And so I love that we're doing this because we also sort of have a range of experiences, and we'll get to share those and then have an audience with a lot of people who are newer in the career or are about to be in the career. But I just think all those perspectives are so important. And I think that's what I love most about a conference anyway, is just all the perspectives together.
Absolutely. I think my world was opened up going to more conferences. I met Dr. Marshall there, and he's become such a mentor to me, and I've learned so much from him, especially now that I'm a practice owner too. I think we all have such unique stories and backgrounds, and a lot of us have done a lot of different things in our veterinary careers. None of us, did one thing, and so it's good to kind of share the broad range that we've had experience in. So before we maybe share just a few of the things we'll talk about at the conference, why don't we each kind of give a little snippet of our vet careers and some of the things that have stood out to us along the way. Gary, you might take the most time with this because you've been in this the longest. So why don't you start?
Oh my gosh. That reminds me, I was just at VLE, so Veterinary Leadership Experience in Northern Idaho yesterday. And one of the things we did there was they have this, and they give like literally 2 hours and they start out with, 60 Post-it notes, and you just put down like memories of your life so you can build it into a story of your life. And cool. I just like kept asking for more Post-its, and people thought, and other people said like, this was really, the 20-year-olds, right? This was really reflective, and I loved the extra time to just sit and think about it. And I was just like sweating at the end. It's like, that was the most stressful event.
They like, I'm exhausted.
Let's go on to the next part of the experience. It's like, I'm not done.
Oh my gosh.
It was stressful. But yes, I've been doing this for a while, and I've already wasted a lot of time talking about that part. So
anyway. we didn't put Gary in charge. Let's be honest. We didn't put Gary in charge because he tends to segue a little bit. So we're here to keep him on task, but he's got a lot of good knowledge to share. So
yeah. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've had my first job in veterinary medicine 46 years ago, and I've owned 2 practices. I've kind of just been in that grind as a solo practitioner, as a boss of employees and associates. and as someone who's sold 2 practices now as well, and just a long time to see just the different trends in veterinary medicine and the different cycles. And for all those Swifties out there, the different eras in veterinary medicine that we kind of all go through. So I think that some of that will come out, especially as we have such a great, I think, a great panel. And I love a good panel too. And the thing about a panel is it's so fun when we're up there and we're presenting it right. But getting us together to try to plan this thing, I don't know how that's going to go. If we're going to be able to pull this off, but I'm looking forward to it.
Herding cats. That's what it is.
Oh gosh.
Yes, yes. Speaking of cats, so you owned feline practices. Give us a
One
little
feline
rundown.
practice. I owned a
Okay.
GP,
Okay.
and then I decided when I had a 1 and a 3-year-old that it'd be a good idea to just start another practice from scratch.
Of
Why
course.
not? And that one was a feline only practice because I didn't have enough money to like build a whole clinic or inventory a whole clinic. So I thought, well, it's just one species. It'll be a little bit cheaper and a little bit smaller and it'll work better. It wasn't because I really was passionate about cats at the time, but that happened as far as the problem solving, the unique challenges that cats bring. And so then I sold my other practice just so I could focus on cats. And I love the sustainability of a good cat practice for careers. And we can talk about that a little bit during the talk as well, maybe why that might be so.
Yeah. I think it's, for me, vet med has gotten more and more kind of niche and specialized as more corporations are coming in. And I see more people doing feline only or very just specific practice types. And now you are a big dog at AVMA, let's be honest, traveling all over. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that position? I know we're jumping through a lot of different things, but
Yeah. And we talked about that like at VLD too, because there was a big gap in my life where, 25 plus years where I just practiced and tried to run a business and raise a family before getting involved in advocacy. So if there's anybody out there that is interested in advocacy work or being, volunteering and giving back to the profession, you can start right off the bat, but you don't have to worry about starting right off the bat. There is time in there for you to do whatever you want to do and then focus on that later instead of trying to do everything all at once. And so, yes, now I am AVMA Vice President, which is sort of the connection between the AVMA and education and early career. So students, faculty, early career veterinarians, and a few other things. But I love it. It's a 2-year term. And I feel like I got the best job in the world, especially I think for my personality.
yeah, you're very passionate about students and all that. And you did bring up education. So I think that segues nicely into Dr. Molly, who is one of the top, let's just be honest, social media veterinary influencers out there, especially with pet owners. You have an amazing educational, fun platform. We met through social media, and I consider you one of my besties now. And so you've also done a lot of things, and we've actually had kind of some similar things in our careers. So give us a little rundown of kind of your past and your perspective.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite things about vet med. I like to say the world is your oyster when you become a veterinarian, because you just never know where the career will lead you, which is kind of sort of my story. But yes, so Tannetje and I were both, I started out as an equine veterinarian. I did an internship in Western Colorado at an equine surgical practice, and because I thought I wanted to be a horse surgeon. So I did an internship, decided I definitely did not want to be an equine surgeon and did not apply for residencies, but I did stay at that practice. So I worked in mixed animal practice. They had both for another year there. And then I'm from Tennessee. So we moved back to Tennessee, and I did mixed practice in Tennessee for a short time once we moved, which is definitely something that has to do with one of my things that we'll talk about in the panel for young vets. And then I made the switch to small animal practice. So that was about 7 years ago. And so I've been in small animal GP since then. I have had a lot of different jobs in small animal GP. I have changed practices a lot, which is definitely has a lot to do with all the things I have learned, all the things I have seen, the different ways I have practiced, the different types of practices I've been in. And it's probably not the path everyone would choose. I'm on about a 2-year schedule. changing practices. I have been at my current practice for almost 3 years, so we're outliving our past here. And but there's a lot I've learned from that, and so I'm excited to share some of that on the panel. And I fell into the lap of social media about 3 years ago, and here we are. And it's been a weird, fun, wild ride, but I have learned the power of positive social media experience and positive social media content. And I had no clue that when I thought, oh, I'll just put some good information out there because there's so much misinformation online that it would become what it is. And I act stupid on the internet. I make people laugh and pretend to be a dog breed or 25 different dog breeds. And some people may look at that and sort of roll their eyes at me and think like, oh, that's so silly. Like, why is a doctor doing that? But if those people could only see the messages I get on a probably daily basis from followers who are just pet owners who love their pets, who tell me they've learned from my educational content and found someone online who they do trust. And so I feel like in some ways I have developed a partnership with the rest of VetMed. I try to help veterinarians and help educate their clients and do some of that communication education that they don't have time to do in the room. And people are going to get an education online, whether you want them to or not, they're going to. And so I think it's important that people like us are helping to provide that.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess my quick backstory, I was the horse girl in vet school. Never going to do small animal, never going to do anal glands. That was gross. And the horse girl burnt out after a few years and went to small animal relief, went to general practice, started doing ER relief, found that small animal ER was a really nice mixture of chaos and amazing surgeries and honestly good pay, that I kind of felt like fulfilled my horse girl side of wanting to not know what was going to happen and having to just handle it. And then fell into owning a general practice and doing a little social media along the way. So I do feel like
social media. Come on.
I do feel like I've had my hands in a lot of different things. But I would absolutely say that, and I'm probably just, feeling the feels because I'm here with y'all. But one of the best parts of starting to and deciding to share my story on social media has been meeting people like you guys online and meeting people in this industry that are really authentic and supportive, and just knowing that you can have joy in this profession and having other people believe that too has been really, honestly, I think helped me have it be more sustainable. And that's really what we want to give, right? The younger generation and the new grads is that hope and that perspective that I think we all have arrived at and have had along the way at certain points. But there's definitely been, low points where you're like, why did I go in this profession? Or why did I buy a practice? Or why did I do equine? And so knowing that there is other paths, or there's other ways to look at things, I think is super, super valuable. And I still feel like I call people and I'm like, I'm struggling today.
What the heck?
So like what was I thinking? So it's been really nice to just kind of have that, and then to talk through it and reflect a little bit has been good. Gary made me reflect, which I don't always like. But
yeah, one of the things when you're talking about that and your backstories that I think is also the case here, and that it will magnify in one of the topics that I think I want us to talk about in our panel is that, and it might be a little controversial, is that the thought that you can have it all. And it kind of just depends on what that all is, because we all have families. We all have stuff that we do outside of veterinary medicine, and we all have veterinary medicine. And that changes from time to time, depending on what our family situation is, what our geography is, what our needs are. And we take that all into account. But I think people say, oh, like, I there's just too much, I can't do it. But I think just defining what that all is then makes it attainable and makes it more satisfying.
Well, and I don't think Molly and I are gonna lie and say that it's smooth sailing. We've had many conversations where we are like, so my husband's not happy because I'm traveling again, or my kids are doing this and I got 20 projects and I feel pulled in 50 directions and I feel like I'm failing on the mom front and the practice front. I mean, we've had those conversations a lot, and I think it's nice to have someone else who understands when you are trying to do a lot. But I've definitely had times where I've hit the wall and had to reassess priorities and rearrange what's on my plate. And having people like you, Gary, to say, these are the opportunities, where are my skills and time best spent is really helpful. But I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, Molly, but I would say it's not easy.
You can speak for me.
I
We
no,
both
I hear that.
talk very openly about this with each other. I do think, yes. And I think these kinds of discussions that we're going to have for new grads or about to graduate or just anyone starting their career in vet med is just the transparency of like expectations are so important. And I feel we all are aware of the mental health struggles in our profession. I think that there is some sort of invisible expectation or pressure that people put on themselves like, oh, I have to like this career. I have to like it because I am finally doing it. I have become a veterinarian. And I think these conversations that are very transparent that we share, I didn't always like my job as a veterinarian. I did think about leaving this profession. I did struggle with XYZ. Slowly but surely can take the pressure away from, oh, I have to like it, or I have to feel fulfilled by this career I've aspired to my whole life. And I think that transparency does some of the hard work in setting up our newer grads for success with their mental health, because it is hard, and there are difficult times, and we shouldn't ever expect anything otherwise. But there's wonderful things.
Yeah. No, it'd be great if we could each have a timeline behind us and like show how long it's actually been and the times and the different things, because I think everyone looks at where you are now and what you're doing. And, I get messaged all the time like, how do I start social media? How do I do this? How do I start speaking? And I'm like, girl, this has taken time. Like, there's been so much up to this point, and social media does that to you. It makes you feel like everyone is so far ahead of you, and it's not the reality. And I think a lot of new grads see that too when they're looking at people and even their classmates, going to other jobs or other things and sharing highlights, and they're thinking, man, look at how great they're doing, and I'm struggling over here. And so kind of pulling back that curtain is important.
Yeah. And I think that, as Molly said, that transparency part of it, veterinary medicine is a team sport. So if you're not transparent, if people don't know either what you're struggling with or what you're excited about, then there's, nobody can help you. And, and if you say, yeah, I'm not as happy as I thought I would be at this thing, then if you don't share that with somebody, nobody can ask you, well, what makes you happy? Let's find a role there, and let's make, whether it's inside veterinary medicine or outside, let's find a place that you can feel satisfied, feel like you're not failing, and enjoying your life, because that's bigger than being a veterinarian.
So we have about 10 or so minutes. Do we all want to maybe share one or two things that we were thinking about sharing on the panel or thinking about bringing up on the panel? I know Gary has been very organized and has actually made a list.
I think one that I would probably be the only one that would say is that I didn't know that the internet or AI would be a thing. I mean, because I started this way back when, and just how technology, how innovations, how things come along that can really change our lives and our practice. And we can either keep doing things the way I'd always done them for years, or we can adjust and modify and see what's good and throw away the old stuff too. So that was one for me, just mainly like technology is going to change. And so sometimes we need to wait it out and you know, jump in or not.
Well, and there's discussions now about how much will AI take over human jobs. I mean, you have the AI radiology readouts now, you have the AI path review readouts now. And so there's actually some funny trends online where they're like, well, at least they can't snuggle this dog or cat, like AI
Right.
can't do this, right? So that, but I think that human connection part and understanding the animal human bond is going to be more and more important as some of these things get more automated.
Yeah.
Um, but I love my AI scribe. That Rex
Yeah.
saves
Oh my
my life.
gosh.
So
It's awesome. It's awesome. Another one that I'll share, and then I'll move it on to somebody else, is that because I think we're all, especially new grads, students, are just so fearful of what's going to happen when they step out that door and get into the real world. And I want to share that, and I didn't know this initially, but that clients are awesome. I
Mm.
love the families I get to know, and we're all scared that everybody's going to like beat us up and, berate us and all that kind of stuff. But if we lean into that expectation that our clients are fun and we want to help them and they want us to help them, then it really kind of flips that script and we can really enjoy interactions with the people that bring their pets to us.
Molly, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I love the people
I know.
for the most part. But yes, it's my favorite. I mean, other than obviously being with animals and helping animals, of course, like that's a given. We all love that. But I just receive so much joy from my relationships with clients. And that's probably been the hardest thing for me bopping between practices is just some of those clients I, lose because they're not all going to follow me all over town all the time. Some of them do, and I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, it's one of my very most favorite parts of my job. So 1000%. Tanasia knows. I love it, love it,
Yeah,
love it.
same. That's the whole like people that say, I want to be a vet because I don't like people. I'm like, oh, let's let's sit down. Let's talk.
Don't be a client facing vet then because
Yeah. Yeah.
Pathology is a thing. So
Yeah.
yep,
Dr. Kate Baker.
research.
She's
yeah.
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, Molly, you got the list ready. So why don't you just roll them off, girl? A plus.
Yes. Okay. It's not like me. So I'll say too that they're sort of related, but when I first became a veterinarian, I viewed how I interacted with my clients as a performance. And I wish I had realized earlier on that it's not a performance. I'm not performing for my clients. I am entering a partnership with my clients.
Mm.
And I felt like, I had to say things the right way and I had to perform. And that set me up for failure with communication and relationships with clients early on. And so it was a lesson I had to learn. And I think it's an important, maybe nuanced change in how you interact with your clients. So that was one. And then also, kind of along the same lines, just I also have had to learn, and I wish someone had drilled this in my head, that you are not for everyone, and that is okay. And that it's really important to focus on building trust and relationship with the clients who you are for, and not to waste your time trying to convince people that you're a good doctor or they should trust what you say. That can be a waste of energy and emotion. And I have wasted a lot of energy and emotion trying to convince people that I'm I'm the vet they should listen to.
I think that's important to know, like what your personality type is and how you might respond to client interactions and criticism and how
So important.
like I'm a 3 and I have an overinflated sense of self. And so, I mean, if someone's like, you're not for me, I'm like, cool.
Good.
I'm good. Like, which is not always great because I need to be more, engaged and empathetic, even if someone is not
Yeah.
feeling me sometimes. So, but I think it's good to know your
And
personality
I
type.
could talk about Enneagrams all day till the cows come home, but it is so important. Find out what your Enneagram is. It will help you with your coworkers as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'll have to figure that out.
Oh, Gary, have we not talked about this?
I was going to say,
No.
Gary, what is the one that's like super social? wants to know everybody.
Gary, you're
like-
probably you may be a 7. I don't know. We're gonna have to analyze this later. I shouldn't.
We're going to send you the test.
You need to read a book and decide what you are in all your free spare time. But
By the panel, Gary, I'm going to need you to know your Enneagram so that we can analyze you.
we did Myers-Briggs this week at VLE, so I know that.
They need to switch to Enneagram.
Okay.
It's better.
And
it's very 8 of
right?
me to say.
Yeah, I was going to say.
See, and
disregard that other very
and anyone who's
test.
listening to this who knows about the Enneagram or thinks they know, you might think like, oh, an 8 probably wouldn't care what their clients think of them, but that's not, because 8s are very worried about justice. And so if someone if they take me the wrong way and they don't realize my intentions, that feels like injustice. And I'm like, no, I have to show them that I do mean well. And I am saying this because I care, And so that's like that's the motivation. And we are very misunderstood because on top of that, we are very bold and come off aggressive. And we're just very misunderstood. You don't say.
I see a new podcast coming on. You and Whitney. Whitney's always talking about this too. So
yeah, she is.
You guys together.
Oh, Whitney and I are the same. We're 8 Wing 7. It's called the Maverick.
This is
Look it up.
This is
Whitney.
why Molly sends me things sometimes, and she's like, "Should I post this?" And I'm like, "No." But I did the same to her. I did the same to her.
Yes,
okay,
I'm going on an Enneagram podcast in 2 weeks as a guest.
Shut
and I am
the door.
Suzanne Stadil. She's like the goddess of
you.
Enneagrams. She has the most wonderful Georgia Southern drawl, and she talks like this.
Yes.
And she says, we're going to talk about the Enneagram today. And it's the most lovely thing to listen to. I am obsessed with her, and so you should read her books.
I love it.
I'll figure this out in all my spare time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we went on a tangent.
No, you're good. You're good. It's given me time to think and start working on my list. So no, it's okay.
Oh my gosh.
I have so many, and I felt like so many things when I read Gary's list. I was like, yes. So I'm trying to kind of think of different things. But this one might be controversial, but I would say that I didn't realize that not all corporations are bad and not all private practices are good.
Here.
I was very anti-corporate practice when I came out of vet school. Extremely pro private practice, and then being in this profession and seeing so many good and bad of both, and honestly working for a corporation but owning a private practice, I have just gotten a much broader perspective. And I think it's not a black and white issue in any way, shape, or form. And I think, yes, things have changed dramatically because of private equity in entering vet med, but I still am not going to be convinced that all corporations are evil. There's been a lot of things that they've brought to this profession that have been helpful, and I'm happy to get more into it with anyone. But even working for Veg and practicing open concept emergency, which people would have never thought would be a thing, has really, I think, changed a lot of my perspective. So that is one big one for me, and I still love and support private practices, and I don't think you have to be firmly one or the other camp. And I think, honestly, if they worked together more, our profession would be better. But that's one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. And then the second one is, and I say this sometimes in talks to vet students, but that James Herriot was a liar. And so
Ooh.
I grew up wanting to be a veterinarian because I read James Herriot books, and not everyone has, but he was, a mixed animal practitioner that was out in the field and, helping everyone day and night. And it was just this beautiful story of the connection he had with the community and how much he helped, and, had some tough clients, but usually everyone came around to appreciate his efforts and his time. And, he had wins and losses, and it just is such a fairy tale romantic view of veterinary medicine. And I still think there is so much magic in what we do, but so much has changed with the way pet owners think, the way they interact, their expectations. The world has changed because of how accessible we can be as veterinarians. James Herriot only had a house phone. You could only reach him at home. You couldn't reach him everywhere all the time. There was some boundaries that were naturally there. And the biggest thing I've learned is, and this is hard to learn, but clients will continue to take from you as much as you let them. And they're not always appreciative of you going above and beyond. Some are. I agree with Gary. Most are. Most are amazing. But there are some that will take a lot from you. And so one of the hardest things as a new grad is wanting to help, but learning how to put up those boundaries. So I still think it's a very magical profession, but there's just a lot that's different from when James Herriot wrote those books. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Okay, so maybe James Herriot isn't a liar, but maybe.
Okay.
Okay, Miss I.
Yeah.
Okay. How by my talk, I'll have a better way of saying it.
How about his books are misleading if that's your expectation of VetNet now?
How about just a lot has changed since James Herriot wrote about the magic of our profession?
Yeah.
Would that work?
I'm going to have to think on this for a little bit.
Do you not
Gary's
agree?
wheels are spinning.
I mean, I'd love another perspective, Gary.
No. Well, certainly things have changed and adapted and all that kind of stuff. And what would James Herriot or Al White? So, I mean, James Herriot's a lie because there was nobody named James Herriot. It was a fake name for that, even though, there's obviously truth in the stories from his perspective. But do you think James Herriot would have evolved and changed when things changed, medications, technology, transportation, all that kind of stuff? Or do you think he'd just remain this pastoral,
good old boy, hometown vet
kind of thing?
How honest are we being here, Gary?
Honest.
Yeah, be honest.
I mean, I think James Herriot was a man that had people at home to take care of his children and hold the house down. And he probably could have continued to be accessible and be the hero to pet owners' stories because of the support that he had. And I think that he would have gotten burned maybe a little bit more. Or there would have been some bad social media reviews when he didn't answer his phone or didn't do things that people had expected from him. So hopefully he would have evolved to realize he couldn't meet the expectations and still maybe be as available in his private life. Because the feedback I've gotten from a lot of older practitioners that grew up, especially equine ones that grew up with someone at home holding the fort down, was that they were able to do everything they did because of that. And they didn't see their kids unless their kids went in the truck with them. And I was specifically told, don't do this if you want to be available for your family. I think equine practice has changed a lot, but James Herriot would have had to really drastically change his accessibility, I think, in the world now if he wanted to be. But I think it would have been easier on him because he was a man. I'm going to get in trouble. Y'all are going to get me in trouble. I'm done.
I'm happy talking about those gender things. And I mean, you all know that I'm married to a very strong woman that happens to be a veterinarian, but we've also had kids that we've raised together and still been able to be in this space and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying there's a million different paths, but I don't know. I'm super, super optimistic. So I want to believe that, if the opportunity came about, he would have changed his hours so that if his wife had a career that she wanted to go and do in the community, that they'd make it work. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Molly, who's right? Who's right? No.
Molly's going to say, I'm not going to say a word.
There's a lot of things I could say. Do you want me to say them?
How did we get here?
Listen,
I thought when you were talking about James Herriot, you were going to talk about like access to care and contextualized care and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm at that point right now to my thing.
Okay, I will say this about this topic. I don't know what James Herriot would do. I think what Al White wrote is, probably was his experience. In the context of what Tannetje just said, I think that there are still plenty of James Herriots out there practicing and they're practicing alongside Molly's and Tannetje's. And as someone who has been me working with a James Herriot type veterinarian, I think sometimes the expectation that sort of romanticized, oh, let me just like humana, put my hands over this dog and I'm going to tell you what's wrong without any diagnostics. Mm-hmm. I think that is sort of that more old school mentality that felt really good to clients at the time, right? And so I think there is some James Herriotness that sets some of the Molly and Tannetje's up for more frustration and hard work as a clinician, because I have experienced this with clients, and I'm thinking about this from the client's perspective. I think pet owners can read and see stories like James Herriot stories and think, well, why can't my vet just kind of do a physical exam and tell me exactly what's wrong with my dog? And I personally experience this currently where I practice, where we literally have a James Herriot still practicing who is very beloved by the community. And it's hard to explain and remain professional why it's actually better that I do XYZ to get to a more accurate answer. So I guess that's my contribution to this conversation is in the context of the clients. I do think that romanticized view hurts us now because things have changed so much.
I mean,
I think that's really valid. Yeah.
Every post you do, you have someone say, well, when I was a kid, we, never did this, or we and our dogs lived to 20, which is not true. So we know the dogs and pets are living longer. So there is, I think that's what I'm trying to say is that perspective, and is hard to fight. And I think books like that, one, made me as a veterinarian kind of feel like it was like that, and I can see where pet owners feel that way.
And the James Herriot thing,
I don't know. Harrison's going to use that, and I'm going to get.
And the James Herriot thing, I think, also goes back to what I was saying about new grads have this pressure of the expectation that this is going to be this lovely, wonderful James Herriot book experience, and so in that way, James Herriot is a liar because it isn't always going to be like that, and that. The pressure of that expectation can be harmful.
Yeah. Being more realistic about it and focusing on the 85% that are lovely and wonderful and magical interactions is great. But there is that very large percentage that stands out sometimes on some days. And you're like, wait, this is not what I signed up for. So I think that's what I'm more speaking to, but I don't want to make it negative. I'll make it positive in some way, and we will educate and have a conversation.
We may need to have another podcast about this.
It's good because
it is a good conversation. It's really important.
There is a legitimately gender part of the conversation because not only are so many of us who are women in the profession fighting James Herriot told me he just had to feel this and he didn't need to take x-rays. On top of that, we are also women, and there is an inherent distrust, honestly, from women of me. And that it just adds to that frustration as a young female veterinarian.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to come to our talk and be like, this is just going to be a negative thing, right? No. I think it's we still love it. We still love it, but we're realistic about it.
Yeah. And these are things that we want a better world for those that are in school now and that are early career vets now. And as the privileged old white guy in the room, I really want to hear about, because if we don't hear about your perspective that's different than my perspective, we're not going to be able to fix it for the future. And I think I have conversations almost every week with people from, whether they're male or female, from underrepresented groups, that it's, this on steroids when they walk into the room, or, if they're in a community that doesn't look like them. And those are big issues too. And we're not going to fix that
whole
here.
other layer,
because we're talking forever, as we all do. But those are parts of it too, that are part of this profession, that we can't be afraid to let people know that it exists, and we're here to hopefully help, and not just
recognizing its existence doesn't, yes, that it's a negative thing, but recognizing it. And I think we can focus on how to push past it, or cope with it, or, figure out how you want to handle that. I think that's the positive we will get to talk about on the panel. We love a panel.
Yeah. Okay. So we segued pretty good, which is great. And I told Gary 30 minutes, we're at 45. So we're going to wrap it up, but y'all are amazing. And then Gary, do you know exactly time and day that they could join us at AVMA?
Yes. And it is on the Saturday, whatever day that is. I think it's the 19th.
Yes,
the 19th, Saturday at 4 p.m. And we're all business people, and unfortunately it overlaps with the VBMA social event that starts at 4:30 on Saturday. So we want to encourage everybody that they'll be fine if they go to the VBMA event a few minutes late and come hang out with us. It's the last lecture of the day, which is always tough. Everybody's tired and burnt out, but we want you to be there. And this podcast is called, like, what, Questions with Crocker or something like that.
I mean, it's going to be all of us.
Well,
we're all going to put it out. So
but we want other people that have been in the profession for a while to chime in and let us know your part too, because I think that it's all going to blend together with the list that we have. And I think in 50 minutes we're probably going to talk about like two things.
No, I'm going to keep us on. I'm going to bring the little gavel thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to keep us on task. So
clicker, bring a clicker.
Yeah. I'm going to shock you guys if you talk too much. No, I'm joking. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I appreciate you guys coming on. Just for podcast wrap up, you guys can listen to us on Apple or Spotify. You can watch me and Molly on YouTube. We all have social media channels. Mine are at dr.tannetje.crocker and at Questions with Crocker. What you got, Molly?
I am at Dr. Molly Says on all your social media platforms, and at Dr. Molly Says Pod for the podcast page.
Gary?
Yes, I am at It Might Get Weird with periods in between the words on Instagram. That's the only one I have bandwidth to do. And the podcast is It Might Get Weird. And I do that with Sarah Ray, who is a first-year vet student, now rising second-year vet student. And I invited her to be here with us today, but she's on a road trip between Seattle and somewhere in South Dakota to do something somewhere vet related. And I don't exactly know what it is.
Good for her.
Yes. Yeah. The future of us. But anyway,
she's hustling.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was fun. Thank you guys for watching. Yep. Yeah. We'll see you in July. And if you want to leave reviews on any of our podcasts, we'd appreciate that too. Harrison always tells me to say that. So you guys have a great day. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.